going to be fun. Today I get to perform the role of evaluator for Arnold Cho. And as we all have seen, we've had a lot of icebreakers in the last few weeks, which is really exciting. And I like to point out specifically for Arnold and his speech, most of us know Arnold, and he was actually in the room before we even joined Toastmasters. So I actually found it surprising that he was just giving his icebreaker speech. And I think it's just really encouraging for all of us in Rising Stars to look at somebody like Arnold, who I think is one of the most outgoing people I have met, not only in our Toastmasters Club, but here at Consumers, and to think that we all have room to improve and to seek that next level, not only in our professional lives, but in our personal lives, and to take that step forward even as an outgoing person and really embrace that challenge to come forward and give this icebreaker speech. So today he's giving his #1 icebreaker speech, and his title is There and Back Again, a Not-So-Hobbit Tale. And I've been told it does not involve hobbits. And for our timer, it's 4 to 6 minutes. Please welcome Arnold Cho to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and esteemed guest. Man travels and scours the world in what he needs, and then ultimately returns home to find it. My name is Arnold Cho, and I was born with a genetic disease named in German Wanderlust, or in Latin, gettest your buttus out of the house. I inherited this from my parents, who left the warm, comfortable bosom of South Korea to seek and experience life and adventure outside of the day-to-day existence that generations after generations have experienced in my ancestral village. For they were the very first to actually live outside of South Korea in 7 generations. And approximately 9 months after they immigrated to the United States, I was born. My brother was the honeymoon baby, and I was the welcome to the US baby. Growing up, my parents loved to take us on road trips. I finally remember my father drove this behemoth Oldsmobile Delta 88 station wagon that was like the size of an aircraft carrier. You could probably put a Prius in the trunk as a spare car instead of a spare tire. We would travel in that gas-guzzling Goliath all through the country. By the time I was 18, my family had driven through 38 of the 48 contiguous states. My father had always told me that the drive home from whatever destination we went to was just as enjoyable to my parents as traveling away. Between my brother and myself, I was always the more adventurous of the two. I would ride my mongoose dirt bike and travel around as many neighborhoods as possible before dinner time, which I was late for quite often to the dismay of my mother. As much as I loved my family and home, I was too preoccupied with satisfying my curiosity on what was around the next bend. The respite for my desire for new experiences and adventures came in the form of college. As most of my friends in high school were picking schools in Michigan, the Midwest, and the East Coast, I was the only kid in my graduating class to look at schools in the West Coast. So I won a Renaissance and a Trojan scholarship to attend the University of Southern California, the Turvey School of Engineering. However, I ended up with a dual degree in strategic management and international finance from the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business, but that is another speech about making the right decisions for you. The lure of warm weather, beaches, and an ocean as a backdrop to my education was extremely inviting. But the penultimate draw was the possibility of diversities and adventures I could have. After a very full freshman year, I attended school full-time and worked as a sushi chef on the weekends through college, which will be another speech on how to make sushi and how to prepare it, and I'll teach you all how to make a California roll.
Yes.
I backpacked through Western Europe for 2 months. On that particular adventure, I stayed with a host family who happened to be boat and barge builders in a town called Sneek in Holland. The town is interconnected with rivers and locks in northern Holland, and my host father, Aldous Visser, who's still a great friend to me to this day, he taught me how to sail a wooden schooner out at the Atlantic and how to drive a barge through a lock without banging to side and through the locked doors. Aldous and his wife Elena also introduced me to my first pub crawl. And actually, I believe Aldous won 10,000 kroner, which is about equal to 1,500 US dollars. Because on the last weekend, all the families that had hosted students invited everybody to the first local bar as a going-away celebration. Then one of the local family members would suggest another bar, and we would all follow suit. And we'd go to the next one and continue drinking. About the fourth bar, I noticed the same group of locals, besides the family members, from the first three bars. And as the drinks flowed, more students were escorted home from being too drunk. At this time, I was trying my best not to appear as drunk as I was, not because I knew what was going on, but by the fact that I did not want Aldous and Elena to carry me 5 blocks to their home. By the 7th bar, I was the last student, and everyone cheered and handed Aldous a stack of money. You see, it is a local tradition with a bit of chicanery that they would bet on which one of the host family students would be the last standing. It was my experiences in Europe that helped me begin to define how I interact with the world around me, especially if I was imbibing alcohol. After I graduated college, I still had that insatiable hunger to travel more and experience as much as I could. I had that opportunity to travel for work as an associate consultant throughout Asia and South America. One experience in particular happened in Shanghai on my way to a client in Xiamen, which is in Southeast China, across from Taiwan. Understand that an airline ticket costs as much as a month's wages at that time. So you either worked for a large company or were very wealthy to be able to travel by airplane consistently. As I boarded an antiquated DC-10, you could still see a shadow of an Arabic stencil as Eastern China Airlines probably purchased a used plane from the discontinued Iraqi Airlines. And due to the cost of these tickets, there were barely 20 people that filled that flight. It was so sparse that during the flight, I was able to stretch out in my own row of seats. Then what ended up happening was massive turbulence hit. The entire plane started to shake, overhead bins were popping open, and flight attendants were huddled in their seats. You see, most Chinese airline pilots are former military transport pilots and get bonuses for conservation of fuel. So they do not necessarily avoid turbulence, they may fly straight through it. So the last images in my head were of a CNN banner ad that flashes on the bottom of your television screen. Eastern China Airline Flight 6566 crashes, 19 Chinese nationals killed and 1 American. Not even a name, just 1 American, and that's what I thought I was. And at that moment, I realized that there were little disappointments in life are not that worth it. The fact that I was fed a boxed lunch that consisted of stale peanuts and red bean cookies during the flight, and that the customer service was a foreign word, I just didn't let it bother me. The trials and tribulations of traveling and working in foreign countries helped me understand how much or little I can allow circumstances to impact me. I've circumvented the globe a dozen times. I believe I've got 4 US passports because they have all been filled with visitation stamps due to work and personal travel. I have walked along the Great Wall of China, hiked all the way down to the Grand Canyon to the Colorado River in business slacks and loafers, which is another speech I'll make on making better choices. I climbed Machu Picchu and ice climbed Mont Blanc. There is so much more to travel and experience. I plan on traveling more to experience as much of our world as I can, whether here in Michigan, in the United States, or abroad. As St. Augustine wrote, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only a page." Now I'm back in Michigan. I first helped my parents as they settled into retirement. I wanted to be involved in my nieces and nephews' daily lives, as I missed the previous 8 years. Just recently, I realized what my father meant when he said that he enjoyed the trip back home. As Terry Pratchett said, "Why do you go away? So that you can come back. So that you can see the place you came from with new eyes and extra color. And the people there see you differently. Coming back to where you started is not the same as never leaving."